It was a cool morning in the Royal District. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft golden light over the tall iron gates of the palace grounds. Royal Guard Corporal Nathan stood straight in a sharp uniform. His boots were polished, his eyes calm and focused. For him, it was just another day on duty. He had been standing guard at this post for 3 years, and he took pride in doing his job with discipline and silence. That gate was not just a door, it was a symbol of trust. Inside the gates, the royal estate was quiet. There were no public visitors scheduled, and everything was under routine lockdown as usual. Only those with high security clearance could enter. At exactly 7:42 a.m., a black armored SUV pulled up to the gate. The engine turned off, and a man stepped out. He was tall, muscular, and carried himself with confidence. His name was Riley, a trained SWAT officer from the capital's federal team. He had been invited as part of a cross-agency training program to observe the Royal Guard's security systems. Riley had arrived earlier than scheduled, and he was already feeling annoyed. His GPS had taken him the long way, and he hadn't had his morning coffee. Still wearing his gear and badge, he walked toward the gate where Nathan stood. "I'm here for the joint training," Riley said sharply. "Open the gate." Nathan remained calm and firm. "Good morning, sir. May I see your clearance document, please?" Riley pulled out his ID and held it up. "This should be enough. I'm Officer Riley, here under federal orders." Nathan didn't move. "I'm sorry, sir. I need the written clearance that was issued by Royal Security Command. Without that, I cannot open this gate." Riley sighed loudly. He looked at his watch, then back at Nathan. "Listen, I'm not just some delivery guy. High SWAT. I'm part of the security system too. Do you know how high my clearance is?" Nathan didn't blink. "Sir, I don't question your role, but my orders are clear. No written clearance, no access." The air around them became tense. Riley took a step forward, trying to assert his presence. He wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by someone he believed outranked. "This is ridiculous," Riley muttered. "You're acting like I'm some tourist. Do you even know what situation you're creating right now?" Nathan remained silent. Riley reached for his radio, trying to contact his team, but the signal was low in the royal zone. He grew more frustrated. His hand brushed over his side belt, and before he could think twice, he reached for his taser. In a single motion, Riley pulled it out and pointed it at Nathan. "Back up," he warned, his voice now louder. "I'm going to pass through. I've had enough of this nonsense." But Nathan didn't move. He didn't raise his weapon or even step back. He simply said, "Sir, this is not the way." Riley's finger twitched, clicked, the taser shot out, and the electric prongs hit Nathan in the chest. His body shook for a moment, and then he dropped to the ground. Everything went silent. For a few seconds, Riley stood frozen. The sound of the taser still echoed in his ears. He realized what he had just done. He had tased a royal guard on royal grounds while on duty. His stomach dropped. "Why did I do that?" he whispered to himself. Suddenly, a loud alarm went off. Red lights began flashing above the gate. A signal had been triggered. Within seconds, the control room inside the estate picked it up. Guards on the inner side rushed to check the gate. Cameras. An alert was sent to the royal command. Riley knelt beside Nathan. "Hey, are you okay?" "I didn't mean to," but Nathan was unconscious. His breathing was slow but steady. Riley looked around. No one was coming to the gate yet, but the doors were now locked from the inside. He tried calling his command again, but the signal was jammed. Then came the sound of engines from the far end of the quiet royal road. Several black Land Rovers appeared. They were identical, sleek, and moved like shadows. Riley stood up quickly. His heart raced. This wasn't a normal response. These were royal convoy vehicles, The convoy didn't slow down. In perfect formation, they pulled up in front of the gate and stopped. The doors opened. Out stepped several individuals in dark suits, not guards, but royal aides and senior officials. Leading them was a woman in a navy blue overcoat. She had a calm, powerful presence, and everyone around her moved only after she did. Riley took a step back. He suddenly felt small. The woman walked toward the gate and looked at Nathan lying on the ground. She didn't speak. Some medical staff from one of the convoy cars ran to help Nathan, carried him away carefully. Another man scanned Riley with a handheld device, confirming his ID. Still, no one said a word to him. The gate slowly opened from inside. Riley remained standing, not knowing what to do. Should he apologize? Should he explain? A quiet voice finally spoke. "You will come with us, Officer Riley," said the woman in the blue coat. "Do not speak unless asked. You are now inside a restricted area." Riley followed them silently, his mind racing. In just a few minutes, everything had changed. One careless action had turned a simple assignment into something far more serious. As the gate closed behind him, Riley looked back one last time. He had no idea that the next 7 minutes had rewritten his entire future. Riley walked through the gate with slow steps. His eyes moved around nervously, trying to understand what was happening. Behind him, the heavy gates of the royal estate shut tight. Ahead of him, several royal aides and guards moved quickly and quietly. No one looked directly at him. No one spoke. It felt like walking into a place where time worked differently, where power didn't need loud voices. He was led through a narrow stone path lined with trees and rose bushes. At the end stood a quiet building made of gray bricks. Didn't look like a prison, but Riley knew it was made for keeping people in. The woman in the navy blue coat, who had spoken earlier, walked ahead of him. She didn't say a word, but her steps were steady, and her presence was strong. Riley learned later her name was Lady Brell, one of the closest advisors to the royal family. As they reached the building, a guard opened the door. Inside was a simple room, white walls, a chair, and a small table. Riley was told to sit. 2 guards stood by the door. Then Lady Brell finally looked at him. "You were supposed to observe," she said calmly. "Instead, you tased one of our most disciplined guards." Riley opened his mouth to explain, but she raised her hand. "I don't need your version yet. You will speak when we ask you to. Until then, stay here." She turned and walked out. The door closed softly behind her. No loud slam, it's quiet control. Riley sat alone in the room. Taz shook slightly. He had been in risky operations before. He had faced dangerous criminals. But this was different. It wasn't just about rules. This was about respect, about honor. And he had broken something sacred. He remembered Nathan's calm face. The guard had never raised his voice. He hadn't even looked angry when Riley argued. And yet, Riley had still made the worst decision. His training had taught him to assess threats, but Nathan had never been one. The minutes passed slowly. Riley looked around the room. There were no cameras, no sounds, just silence. He leaned back in the chair, and thoughts flooded his mind. His past, his job, the pressure he had felt recently. He had been part of the SWAT team for over 8 years, fast missions, sharp decisions, constant training. But lately, it had been harder to stay sharp. After losing 2 teammates during a high-risk rescue months ago, Riley had been restless. The agency told him to take a break, but he refused. He thought staying busy would help. Now he was starting to realize that maybe he hadn't fully recovered. Not mentally. Back at the palace gate, Nathan was now in the medical wing. Doctors checked his heart rate and muscles, making sure the taser had caused no lasting harm. He opened his eyes, slowly. A nurse gave him water. Nathan tried to sit up, but the nurse asked him to rest soon. A senior officer entered. It was Commander Ellis, Nathan's older brother. Tall and sharp-eyed, Ellis was known for being one of the top strategists in royal security. "Nathan," he said softly, "tell me what happened." Nathan looked at him. He was impatient. He wanted to get through without clearance. "I refused. He warned me. Then he used the taser." "Did you feel threatened?" "No. He was just frustrated. I think he lost control." Ellis nodded. "Thank you." That's all Nathan said. He didn't ask for punishment. He didn't speak with anger. He was calm, just like always. Later that day, a high-level security meeting was held inside the estate. The attendees included royal advisors, intelligence officers, and commanders. Lady Brielle led the discussion. "We have a federal officer who tased one of our own," she began. "The question is, was it a personal failure or a failure in the system?" A royal intelligence officer stood up. "His name is Officer Riley Hunt. He's highly trained, but he shouldn't have been sent alone, okay? And his clearance was incomplete. It was a paperwork mistake." Another voice added, "Still, he acted recklessly. We cannot ignore that." Lady Brielle looked thoughtful, but he also stopped at the moment. He realized he didn't run, he didn't fight, accepted responsibility. That matters too. The room was quiet. Then Ellis spoke. "I visited him. He's shaken. He's not a bad officer, just broken in places we didn't see." "Maybe this moment showed us something deeper," Lady Brielle agreed. "We often train for enemies outside, but what about the ones inside? Stress, pride, miscommunication. They can be just as dangerous." Back in the holding room, Riley sat silently. A young royal officer entered with a small tray of food and placed it on the table. "You can eat," he said politely. "You won't be here long." Riley looked up. "Am I being taken back to the city?" The officer smiled slightly. "Not yet." After eating, Riley sat again in silence. A few minutes later, the door opened. This time, it was Commander Ellis. "You don't know me," Ellis said, "but you tased my brother this morning." Riley stood up quickly. "I'm sorry, I didn't." Ellis raised his hand. "I'm not here for an apology. I just want to understand what made you do it." Riley paused. Then, slowly, he sat back down. "I've been on edge for a while. I lost teammates a few months ago. I didn't take time to heal. I've been moving from one mission to another, trying to keep busy. When I got to the gate and saw your brother, so calm, so firm, Tana, I don't know, something inside me snapped. I felt like I was being stopped again, okay? Like I wasn't being seen." Ellis listened carefully, and after it happened, "Kai knew right away," Riley said. "Kai knew I had crossed a line I couldn't walk back from." Ellis stood quietly. Then he said, "You may be punished, but punishment isn't always the answer." He walked out. Riley sat alone again, not knowing what to think. Meanwhile, back in the council room, Lady Brielle made a note in her file. "Sometimes," she said to the others, "a mistake opens the door for change." I believe this is one of those moments. As the sun set over the royal grounds, the heavy gate stood closed. But inside the estate, something was beginning to shift, not just in policy, but in people's hearts. And for Riley, the next chapter was about to begin. The night air was cool as a light breeze swept across the royal estate. The trees whispered in the wind, and lights glowed softly through the windows of the inner buildings. Deep inside one of those buildings, Riley lay on a simple bed in a quiet room. He wasn't a prisoner, but he also wasn't free to walk out. It was a place used for holding guests under observation, as they had told him. He couldn't sleep. His mind was full of questions. What would happen to him? Would he be sent back in shame? Would he lose his job? He didn't fear punishment. What troubled him more was the deep feeling that he had failed, not just as a SWAT officer, but as a human being. He thought of Nathan again. How had the guard stayed so calm. Even in the moment of danger, Nathan hadn't panicked. Riley remembered how quiet Nathan's voice was when he said, "Sir, this is not the way." That line kept echoing in Riley's head. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. It opened slowly, and a man in a formal gray suit stepped in. He was older, his face lined with years of wisdom and patience. Riley stood up at once. "I'm Harold Dance," the man said, "Royal Intelligence Consultant. I've been assigned to review your case." Riley nodded silently. Harold pulled a chair and sat across from him. "You've caused quite a wave here," Harold said in a gentle tone. "Few people ever make headlines inside these walls, and even fewer survive it with their dignity." Riley looked down. "I understand if you don't trust me." Harold studied him for a moment. "Tell me something. Before yesterday, had you ever disobeyed protocol?" "No," Riley replied. "I always followed the chain of command. Always. Until that moment." "Why not yesterday?" Riley took a breath. "I think I was tired. Not just physically. Something deeper. I've been carrying things I never talked about. Stress, guilt. I thought I was strong enough to push through it, but I wasn't." I snapped. Harold nodded slowly. "It takes strength to admit that, especially in front of someone like me." Riley said nothing. Harold stood up and walked to the window. "Did you know Corporal Nathan was once part of an international peacekeeping mission?" Riley looked up, surprised. "No, I thought he was just a guard." Harold smiled slightly. "Nathan is never just anything. Kay's one of the most respected men here. Hey, he doesn't talk much about his past, but those who know him trust him with their lives." Riley leaned back, feeling even smaller. Harold turned around. "And do you know why Nathan didn't press charges against you?" Riley shook his head. "Because he believes people can change," Harold said. "He told us you didn't act with hate, Kay. You acted with pressure. Dead means you can be helped." Riley felt a lump in his throat. "I'm going to recommend that you stay," Harold continued. "Not as a prisoner, but as a participant in something new. The Royal Guard is starting a program to train officers like you people who have skills, but also struggles. A kind of exchange project between us and your department." Riley's eyes widened. "You want me to stay and train?" Harold nodded. "If you're willing. You'll work with our people, learn from them, okay? And they'll learn from you." Riley sat in silence. He had expected to be sent away. He had expected a file closed with failure. But this was different. "Do I have a choice?" he asked. Softly, Harold smiled. "Everyone has a choice. That's what makes it real." That evening, Riley was moved to a guest cabin on the edge of the training fields. It was quiet, peaceful, and simple. A few Royal Guards passed by, nodding to him politely, but without words. He knew they had heard what happened. He could feel it in the way they looked at him, curious but reserved. The next morning, Riley stood in the training yard, dressed in a fresh uniform. He watched as a group of Royal Guards practiced quiet drills, nothing loud. No shouting, just smooth, silent movements. It was so different from what he was used to in his SWAT world. There, everything was about speed and force. Here, it was about timing and awareness. Then, to his surprise, Nathan walked into the yard. He was back on duty, dressed as if nothing had happened. The only sign of the incident was a small bandage on his neck. Riley stood straight. Nathan walked up to him and offered a calm nod. "You're starting today?" "Yes," Riley replied. "Only if you're okay with it." Nathan gave a small smile. "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't." They stood quietly for a moment. "I'm sorry," Riley said again, truly meaning it. "I know," Nathan said. "Let's move forward." That simple sentence lifted a weight off Riley's chest. There were no long speeches, No hard stares, just a quiet understanding. Training days passed quickly. Riley began learning how the Royal Guards operated. Their focus was not just on defense, but also on presence, how to calm a crowd with body language, how to read small signals before trouble began, how to stay silent when silence was more powerful than shouting in return. Riley shared some of his knowledge to how to react during rapid raids, how to assess hidden threats in crowded places, and how to use communication tools under pressure. Slowly, the guards warmed up to him. They started talking more, asking questions, inviting him to join meal breaks. The wall between them was not gone completely, but cracks had started to show. Good cracks. One evening, Nathan invited Riley to walk with him through the garden paths behind the estate. "This place teaches more than security," Nathan said. "It teaches patience." Riley nodded. "That's what I needed to learn the most." Nathan looked at him. "You're not a bad man, Riley. You just forgot to breathe." Riley smiled at that. "Yeah, I think I held my breath for months." They walked quietly under the moonlight. The soft sounds of night birds filled the air. Riley felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. He knew the journey wasn't over. There would still be people who didn't trust him. Mistakes like his didn't go away overnight. But at least now he had a chance to rebuild, and that was more than he had hoped for. The room felt grand, yet quiet, almost like a courtroom. Riley stood still as the three people at the table looked at him closely. Lady Brielle gave him a short nod, while Commander Ellis kept his gaze firm, but not unkind. The older man in the black suit with silver cuffs gently folded his hands on the table. "You may sit." "Officer Riley," Lady Brielle said. Riley pulled out the chair in front of him and sat. He wasn't sure what to expect: punishment, lecture, or maybe even dismissal. But deep down, he was ready for any outcome. After what he had done, he knew this wasn't going to be easy. The older man spoke first. His voice was calm and deep. "I am Lord Marius. I oversee royal security and behavior matters within this estate. I've read the report, spoken to the staff, and I've spoken to Guard Corporal Nathan." Riley nodded slowly, waiting for the judgment to fall. "What you did was serious." Lord Marius continued. "Used force on a guard of the royal estate while he was doing his duty. He showed no aggression. He followed protocol, and yet he was tased." "I understand, sir," Riley said softly. "I don't have excuses. It was wrong." Ellis looked over at Riley, then leaned slightly forward. "When I visited my brother, do you know what he said?" Riley shook his head. He said, "I don't think he wanted to hurt me. I think he's hurt himself." That sentence struck Riley deeply. His chest tightened. "I never wanted to harm anyone," Riley said quietly. "I wasn't in the right state of mind. I was tense, angry, confused. And when Corporal Nathan stayed calm, when he stood his ground, I didn't see him as a threat. But my pride got in the way. I wanted to push past rules, and I failed." There was a moment of silence. Lady Brielle took a deep breath. "Do you understand why your actions have caused more concern than just the taser itself?" Riley nodded slowly. "'Cause it happened here at the royal estate, where trust, discipline, and control matter more than anything. Where guards don't just protect people, they represent peace, and I disrupted that peace." "That's correct," Lord Marius said. "But we also understand something else. You didn't run. You didn't resist. You didn't lie. You stayed, and you took responsibility. That tells us something too, Riley." "We're surprised." We looked up. "Do you think you're fit to return to duty in your current condition?" Lady Brielle asked. "No," Riley replied. "Not until I understand myself better." The three at the table exchanged a look. Then Lord Marius gave a gentle nod. "We have a program here," he said. "It's not well known. It's designed for those who have lost their balance. Military, officers, guards, even foreign agents. People who once had control, but lost it for a while. Lady Brielle leaned forward. We don't believe in discarding people who make one mistake, especially those who show a willingness to grow. So we are offering you something unusual. Riley raised his eyebrows. What is it? You will remain here within the estate, Ellis explained. Not as a prisoner, but as a guest. For the next several weeks, you will take part in our internal reflection training, physical, mental, emotional. You will shadow guards, learn their routine. You will assist in small ways, and in return, you will rebuild your control. Riley was speechless. He had expected punishment, perhaps even removal from service. But what they were offering him was something far more meaningful, a second chance. I don't deserve this kindness, Riley said. Honestly, you don't have to deserve it, Lady Brielle said softly. You just have to honor it. Riley nodded, holding back the emotion rising in his chest. Starting tomorrow, Ella said, standing up. We'll report to the Eastern Training Grounds at 5 a.m. You'll be guided by Sergeant Omar. He's strict, but fair. Yes, sir, Riley replied immediately. You're dismissed for now, Lord Marius said. Get some rest. Riley stood, gave a small, respectful nod, and walked out of the room quietly. The next morning, Riley woke before sunrise. He put on a basic training uniform provided by the estate. It didn't carry a SWAT badge. There were no weapons, no gear, just simple clothes. It reminded him of his early days as a trainee, when everything was still new. At exactly 5 a.m., he arrived at the Eastern Grounds. The air was cool, the sky still dark. Group of guards were already stretching and jogging. Among them stood Sergeant Omar, tall, well-built, and serious-looking, with eyes that had clearly seen years of service. You're Riley? Omar asked without a smile. Yes, sir. You're late by 30 seconds, Omar said firmly. Next time, you're early, not just on time. Understood? Understood. Good. Then you start with the basics. Warm up, then fence run, then gate drills. Riley followed the instructions without complaint. He jogged, stretched, and ran the fence line 3 times. Sweat covered his forehead quickly. But he didn't stop. Every step felt like a step back to himself. After the run, Riley helped with gate drills, standing like a guard, responding to mock visitors, and practicing stillness. It wasn't just about being alert. It was about being patient, respectful, and calm. For the first time in months, Riley felt focused, not chasing danger, not rushing, steady. Later that day, he was taken to the reflection hall, a quiet place with books, meditation rooms, and one-on-one sessions with mentors who had served the royal family for years. His first session was with a man named Dorian. It's an old royal counselor with a soft voice and deep wisdom. What troubles you most, Riley? Dorian asked. My own weakness, Riley admitted. I thought I was stronger, but I lost control so easily. Strength is not always about what you stop, Dorian replied. Sometimes it's about knowing when to wait, to listen, to breathe. That is what your guard, Nathan, did. And now it's your turn to learn. Riley nodded. He didn't speak much after that. He just listened. For the first time, he welcomed the silence. Over the next several days, Riley followed the same routine: early morning training, afternoon mentorship, evening reflection. Slowly, something inside him began to change. His mind felt clearer, his body more relaxed. His pride no longer pushed him to prove himself. Instead, he focused on becoming better, not for others, for himself. On the 5th morning, as he was completing a lap around the training field, he noticed a familiar figure standing nearby. It was Nathan. He wore his guard uniform again, fully recovered, standing tall like the first day Riley saw him. Their eyes met. Riley slowed to a stop, unsure of what to say. Nathan walked up to him and simply said, "You're moving better now." Riley gave a small smile, trying to. Nathan nodded. "We don't hold grudges here. Just hold people accountable, then give them a chance to return stronger." Riley's chest felt tight with emotion. He gave a respectful nod. "Thank you for your patience that day, and for not making it worse." Nathan smiled slightly. "That was my duty. And now, this is yours." As Nathan walked away, Riley stood in silence for a moment, looking at the path ahead, not just the running track, but his life. He was no longer just a SWAT officer. He was a man in progress, someone learning the true meaning of strength, peace, and honor, and he knew the real test was still ahead. The days passed quickly, though Riley felt time moving in a way he hadn't known before. The training, the reflections, the quiet conversations, they were not easy. Each moment challenged him to look inside himself and face truths he had long avoided. One morning, as the sun rose, casting warm light across the estate, Riley found himself standing by the royal gates once more. This time, it was not to pass through or cause trouble. It was to watch. Nathan stood there, calm and alert, as always. The royal convoy was due soon, and the gate needed to be perfectly secure. Riley observed the guards moving in their precise formations, each knowing exactly what to do, without hesitation or doubt. Watching them, Riley felt a deep respect growing inside. These men and women carried more than weapons. They carried responsibility for a nation's safety, peace, and dignity. He understood now what it truly meant to stand guard. After the convoy arrived and passed without incident, Riley was called to a meeting with Lady Brielle, Commander Ellis, and Lord Marius. The atmosphere was serious, but not harsh. "You have completed most of your training," Lady Brielle said, "and you have shown great progress. Your time here has not gone unnoticed." Riley felt a nervous excitement. Was this the moment when they would decide if he could return to his old life? Or was there more to the journey? Lord Marius spoke next. "We believe you are ready to face the final step. Tomorrow, you will join the royal security team for a day. You will accompany them on official duty, learning to work not just as a soldier, but as a protector of trust." Ellis added, "This is not a test of your strength or skills alone. It is a test of your patience, your respect for others, and your ability to remain calm under pressure." Riley nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He wanted to prove he was worthy, not just to them, but to himself. The next day arrived quickly. Riley wore the Royal Guard uniform once again, but this time it felt different. This was not a symbol of power or pride. This was a symbol of duty and respect. He joined the team as they prepared for a public event and important ceremony attended by dignitaries and citizens. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Throughout the day, Riley followed orders carefully. He watched how the guards communicated silently with their eyes, how they adjusted their positions smoothly without causing alarm, and how they remained calm even when crowds grew noisy and restless. At one point, a sudden shout came from the crowd. A person had fainted. Without hesitation, Riley and two guards rushed forward, clearing the way for medical staff. It was a moment that reminded him that being a guard meant protecting not only against danger, but also helping those in need. Later, during a brief pause, Nathan approached him. "You did well today," he said quietly. Riley looked at him, feeling grateful. "Thank you for believing in me." Nathan smiled. "Sometimes we all need a second chance. You earned yours." As the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, Riley felt a deep sense of peace he had not known in a long time. He realized that his journey was not about punishment or failure, but about growth and understanding. Back in the council room, Lady Brielle, Ellis, and Lord Marius gathered once more. "Riley," Lady Brielle said, "you have shown the qualities we seek in every guard. respect, calmness, and strength born from humility. We welcome you back to the force with conditions. You will continue your training and you will serve with honor. Riley's heart swelled with gratitude. He bowed his head slightly. I promise to serve with honor and never forget what I have learned. Ellis clapped him on the shoulder. Welcome back, officer. The gates opened again the next morning, this time to let Riley and the royal convoy pass through together. As the convoy rolled slowly forward, Riley stood at his post, steady and proud. He looked at Nathan, who gave him a small, not a silent signal of trust and respect. Riley smiled to himself. The road ahead would have challenges, but he was ready. Not because he was perfect, but because he was willing to learn and grow. And in that moment, standing by the royal gates, Riley understood what it truly meant to protect not just a place, but the honor of those who relied on him.